Welcome back. Our continuing coverage of the 128th IOC session, where, of course, the host of the 2022 Winter Olympics will be decided this afternoon. We're now joined in the studio by Justin Downs, the president of IMG Ski Management Resorts. Thank you very much, Justin, as always, for being with us. Now, to continue our conversation from earlier, we hear numbers such as 300 million. That's the amount of people that is speculated could possibly join winter sports in China, even if the bid is not successful. Can you put this number in perspective and explain just what your predictions for the winter sports industry are in China?
Well, thanks, Gray. But 300 million sounds like an audacious number. But when you put it into percentages, it's 20% of China's population. So if you look at other more developed sporting nations or even Asian nations like Korea or Japan, in its heyday, Japan had close to 60% of people participating in winter sports. It's now dropped to 30% for decline of population and aging. And even South Korea, with a very small population, has close to 15% people participating in the sport. So 20% for China is not an unrealistic objective.
Certainly. Incredible. When you put it that way, seems more than attainable, certainly. Now, based on your experience, what are some of the factors that attract foreign companies to invest and specialize in winter sports, such as yourself? What brought you over here, and what do you see for the growth of this industry from a business perspective?
Well, we came over to China in 2006 because we saw the dawn of a new industry. As Chinese people were aspiring to have a better quality of life, better opportunities, they were given more time off, had more money to spend, it's only natural that tourism is going to be a big part of their life. So winter sports, especially for people who live in the Northeast, is a natural. There's more than 40% of China's population is in the city, and half of those live in cold climates. So you do those percentages, there's a lot of people that are looking to have experiences in the winter that weren't existing back in 2006, so it's natural to come along and help to try to contribute to that industry.
Now, of course, is your role as a ski management resort, what can you tell us basically in the time that you've been here? How much growth have you seen from your own perspective? Just seeing the number of people on the hills, the people who are taking to the sport. What can you say about the growth of this industry and how popular things like skiing has become in China?
I would say that the most obvious thing that has come about is the passion for people that have for it. Obviously, people jump on bandwagons, they follow brands, they follow trends, but a lot of people aren't sure why they do that. But now I can see a real passion in not just the people who come to participate in it as a customer, but the people who are choosing it as a career. So people before were getting jobs in winter sports environments because they needed a job. Now they're doing it because they realize that it's fun, it has a solid career path, and it's a real viable industry. So that's probably the most obvious. I mean, the other obvious thing is just the sheer volume of investment that's come in from international and domestic investors to really take a hold and take control over what really is a growing industry.
Absolutely. Now, in addition to the rights to hosting the 2022 Winter Olympics, what are some of the additional benefits that China could receive as a result of staging these games?
Well, as you saw in the presentation by the China Olympic Committee, there's many spin-off benefits. Tourism, obviously, is just one natural contributor to the growth of China's economy. Right now, it only represents 4% of GDP, whereas the global average for tourism is over 10%, and in the United States, it's more than 20% of their GDP is tourism. So as people have better venues and better experiences to go on holidays within China, it obviously is going to contribute to the growth of tourism and GDP as a result. Sports, it was mentioned $800 billion is where the sports industry could grow to in China. It's only at $150 billion right now. So that's less than 0.5% of China's economic growth at the moment. So there's huge potential in brands coming in, companies setting up shop, growth in employment, growth in infrastructure. All of these things are kind of bound to happen regardless.
Incredible. Now, going forward too, what are some of the changes that you might speculate we can expect in how the country perceives winter sports? And if the bid is successful, which events do you think will strike a particular chord with Chinese people?
Well, Chinese people already have an affinity with ice skating, for example. We've put many people on the podium in China over the years. And Chinese people, as we know, really have a passion and love and adore their sports stars. And I think that will always be a natural one where people will want to participate. Ice hockey, especially with someone now just joining the NHL, this will also gain great respect and notoriety amongst Chinese people. The growth of ice skating rinks and for ice hockey and these types of sports will only encourage people. The government will encourage people, and growth of recreation centers to get people into the sport, and will financially support people who might be on the lower income brackets to get into and embrace these things. Skiing is obvious. And people are already embracing that, and it's growing in double-digit growth every year.
Just incredible. And of course, now with this infrastructure, you know, the IOC always talks about sustainability. And obviously, from what you've said, this seems simple. We build these hills, the people are going to come. The ones that are already existing, of course, are drawing an incredible business, and a train to cut the distance, of course, to these regions is only going to increase that. How do you see yourself, you and your partners, benefiting from this, not just in the Beijing region, but do you see this as China as a whole, somewhere up north in Harbin, in other potential areas? Do you see the growth expanding rapidly up there as well?
Oh, without a doubt. And it's not just about northeast. There's several indoor ski facilities being built in the south, in Guangzhou and southern China, where people want to have access to kind of sports that are winter oriented, but they can't get away, and so we build them more locally. Ice skating venues are being built as a part of many mixed-use shopping malls. And to be honest, a lot of the visitors that are coming up that are experiencing winter holidays and winter sports experiences are actually coming from southern China already. So it's not just a northeast China benefit, it's actually going to be a national benefit.
Fantastic. Now, Justin, when we were speaking earlier, you actually mentioned to me that you were involved in the 2010 Olympics in Vancouver. And at that time, you talked about, your role and your participation in that. I'd like to know, of course, being a Canadian as well, just what the feeling is to be connected with a bid and to be present at a Winter Olympics. What can people in China expect to enjoy if they win the right to host these games?
Well, we went out actually with a Chinese delegation as the real start of looking at what it would be to put a bid in for this Olympics. So we were there from a Chinese perspective looking at it. You know, when you're in a place like Vancouver, Vancouver is a very vibrant type of place, and it was the sporting events themselves are great, but it's the party and the feeling of pride and the feeling of having a good time, and it was just a 2-week party. And I think that really energized the city, and I think that the opportunity to recreate that in Beijing is definitely possible. And I think that will be a mandate or a priority of the China Olympic Committee, is not just to pull off a great technical event, but is to show the world that Chinese people know how to have a good time, and it's not all buttoned up, that people can really just let loose and show that sport is fun.
That's fantastic. One of the most amazing things coming out of this, of course, if Beijing wins this, they're going to be the first city to host both the summer and the winter games. I mean, this is absolutely unprecedented. Given Beijing's layout and the technical advantages they have, it's something that could very well happen. What do you see also from the Olympic development? How will this affect Chinese people? I mean, in the world right now, there were 6 cities that originally bid for these games. It was reduced to 2 for financial reasons and due to a lack of support within their country. You've been around the Olympics a fair bit. Can you provide any perspective on why the Olympics is so popular in China to Chinese people, whereas in other countries it might seem less popular than it used to be?
Well, certainly the main reason why other countries have dropped out has been purely for economic reasons. They quite simply cannot afford the scale of investment that is required to meet the requirements, and they have other priorities, whether it be education or healthcare or roads. All of these things China already can afford, and putting on and hosting an Olympics, it's not taking away from any of the other social economic responsibilities the government has to do. In 2008, the purpose really for the Olympics was to show to the world that China was here as a global power, that we meant business, that we can do a good job, and we're to be respected. And it gave the Chinese people great pride. These Olympics in 2022 are really about giving a better quality of life to Chinese people. So it's not so much, while we'll show to the world that China can do a great job, it's really about improving the quality of people's lifestyle in China. And I think Chinese people will really embrace that.
That's fantastic. It certainly speaks to the Olympic spirit and What more can the IOC want? This is what they want to see. It's not just sustainability in terms of economic and facility development, but they want to see people embracing this, taking on winter sports and becoming more active. I myself am a skier, a snowboarder rather. I spend time in the mountains around Beijing. And in those short years, I've seen, just as you mentioned, the passion of new people coming out, joining the sport, having a great time. And I believe if these facilities continue as they are, it's only going to grow. Speaking of the area around Beijing, how much larger can they get? We're looking at Zhangjiakou as a region for new ski hills. What are the possibilities of developing more and more facilities close to home?
Well, I mean, actually, just purely as a spin-off of the Olympics, Zhangjiakou will become closer to home as a result. And we'll get better highways, better air access, and high-speed rail. So it's just like 10 years ago, it was difficult to get to the beach. You can jump on a high-speed train and be at the beach in an hour or so. The same will become a no-brainer for people to head up to the mountains from Beijing. Obviously, around Beijing itself, we do have limited mountains.
Sorry, Justin, I'm going to stop you right there. Thank you so much for your time.